Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone. If you've been with us for a while, you know we go deep into some of the most mind-bending, unbelievable, yet oddly fascinating stories surrounding rare coins, historic currencies, and those strange times when something seemingly ordinary ends up rewriting the rules of value, wealth, and history itself. Today, we've got a story so wild, so wrapped in secrets, conspiracies, and the twist of fate that it's hard to believe any of it could be true, yet every piece of it connects back to one coin. A single 1987 D quarter dollar. Just 25 cents in the palm of someone's hand. But that very coin would, decades later, be appraised and exchanged for an amount that has stunned the entire numismatic community and captured the attention of billionaires, historians, and black market moguls alike, an astronomical $394 million. How could a 1987 D quarter possibly be worth more than the gross domestic product of some small nations? What story does it carry? And more importantly, who ended up holding this quarter, and how did they find out what it was really worth? Let's rewind the clock to the fall of 1987. Denver, Colorado. A sleepy, gray morning on October 20th, just one day after what would be remembered as Black Monday, the largest one-day stock market crash in U.S. history. The economic ripple effects were everywhere, especially in Denver's industrial sector. One such sector, often ignored by the headlines, was the U.S. Mint facility quietly humming in the city's core. But among the millions of standard coins produced during this volatile week, there was one quarter that slipped through unnoticed. Or perhaps it didn't slip through unnoticed, but was carefully smuggled out, by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The individual in question was Arthur Bexley, a mint engraver with a spotless career and a reputation for his obsessive precision. But Arthur had secrets. Whispers followed him, stories of late nights alone in the engraving lab, of strange conversations in empty corridors. Most dismissed them as workplace gossip, until the week after the crash, when Arthur suddenly disappeared. No retirement notice. No transfer. No letter. Just gone. What no one knew was that Arthur had been working on a personal project for nearly 6 years. Not sanctioned by the Mint. Not authorized by any federal department. This project was rooted in something far older than coinage, a map. A centuries-old treasure map etched onto metal, an heirloom handed down through generations in Arthur's family. But this wasn't any pirate tale. This was something much older. Something Arthur believed dated back to a pre-Columbian civilization that had buried not gold, but knowledge, mathematical tablets and energy equations that could change the world. Arthur's theory was that these locations were encoded not through visible symbols, but through microetching, a technology far beyond what mainstream archaeologists believed ancient people capable of. Arthur didn't care. He believed. And he had a plan, to hide a precise copy of the map onto a coin so common it would vanish into circulation without a trace, until it reached the right hands. Using microscopic engraving techniques and a reverse metal transfer process he developed in secret, Arthur encoded the coordinates and map data onto a single quarter. The chosen base? A 1987 D quarter, selected specifically because of a batch known to have a minor minting anomaly that could mask the presence of his etchings. He slipped the quarter into a bag destined for the Denver Federal Reserve and vanished that very night. Most assumed he had met with foul play or fled the country. His apartment was abandoned, his mail untouched. He was never seen again. For nearly 20 years, the quarter passed silently from hand to hand. It was dropped into vending machines, spent at gas stations, pocketed by college students, and forgotten under couch cushions. But it was in 2005, in rural Nebraska, that the quarter finally began to reveal its secrets. A teenage coin collector named Dean Holbrook was rummaging through his grandfather's old coin jar, a glass container filled with random change going back decades. Dean wasn't looking for treasure. He was looking for state quarters to finish a display set. But one coin caught his eye. It had the right date, 1987, and bore the familiar D mint mark. But something about it felt strange. The texture, the reflectivity of the surface under light. It was subtle. but unmistakable. He brought it to his room and began examining it under a basic USB microscope. At first, he saw nothing. But as he adjusted the focus and lighting, he saw the beginning of a pattern, an impossibly fine series of lines forming what appeared to be an angular curve. Thinking it a minting defect, he posted photos on a coin collector forum. Most replies dismissed it, until one user, a retired geologist and amateur cryptographer, messaged him privately and said the pattern reminded him of ancient geoglyphs found in the Andes. Over the next several months, Dean and the man, who only referred to himself as Elridge, collaborated in secret. Using enhanced imaging software and 3D modeling, they uncovered more of the hidden design. Coordinates began to emerge, and not just random points, each location tied to an ancient ruin known for unexplained technological anomalies. But before they could publish their findings, Dean's house was broken into. Nothing was stolen, except for the coin. That might have been the end of the story, but 3 years later, the coin reappeared. In 2008, it was sold anonymously at a private auction in Geneva. The buyer? A reclusive tech billionaire known for investing in fringe science. The selling price? $394 million. Paid entirely in cryptocurrency, the story exploded in underground forums and among hardcore collectors. The numismatic world was in chaos. The official US Mint denied all knowledge. But the data was undeniable. The coin, now named the Bexley Quarter, was housed in a private research facility in Iceland. Scientists working under extreme secrecy claimed the micro-engravings included formulas related to quantum energy transfer and gravitational manipulation, concepts only recently being explored in theoretical physics. Whether the ancient civilization truly knew what they were encoding, or whether Arthur Bexley had invented it all himself, was hotly debated. But one thing was certain: the coin was real. The etchings were not random, and yet, even more chilling than the coin's contents was what happened to those who pursued it. Dean Holbrook? He vanished a year after the break-in. Elridge? His online presence was scrubbed, and no trace of him could be found. The billionaire owner? His estate went into silence after a fire gutted his Arctic lab. Some believe the coin was destroyed. Others insist it was moved once again, this time to a floating research vessel that never docks in any one place for too long. But perhaps the strangest twist came in 2021, when a second coin was discovered. This one was traced back to the same Denver Mint batch. But instead of micro-etchings, it had what appeared to be a microscopic code embedded in its metallic structure, an artificial genome that, when decoded, described a synthetic life form designed to survive in non-terrestrial environments. In other words, a blueprint for alien life. Panic swept through the scientific community. Were these coins part of a larger plan? A series of seeded knowledge tokens meant to awaken humanity at a certain point in its development? Or was this the elaborate work of a single man who had stumbled onto something far bigger than himself? To this day, the original Bexley Quarter has not resurfaced. Collectors debate its existence, but the digital footprint of its sale and the hundreds of leaked lab photos have never been debunked. No other 1987 D quarter has exhibited the same properties, though thousands have been tested. What we're left with is a mystery. A modern artifact. A coin that turned out to be not just money, but a message. A message encoded not in ink or sound, but in the very particles of a common object. One that, when viewed through the right lens, tells us a story far older and far stranger than we ever imagined. So the next time you get change at the store, and you see a dusty old quarter from 1987 with a D stamped below Washington's head, take a moment. Hold it to the light. Tilt it back and forth. You never know what might be hidden in plain sight, and if you find one that looks just a little too perfect, maybe it's worth more than you think. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next time with another journey into the bizarre world of coins, history, and the stories buried in your pocket change. Next 1992 P $quarter coin. If you're returning, then you already know the kind of wild, unbelievable, and completely real coin stories we dive into, stories that defy all expectations, rewrite what we think we know about value, and open the door to the kinds of mysteries that make you stare at the change in your pocket a little longer. Today, we're going even deeper. This one's not just a mystery. It's a legend. A riddle buried in metal. A story about a single 1992 quarter dollar that went from being just another 25-cent piece in someone's laundry pile to becoming one of the most coveted, mythologized, and ultimately most expensive coins in the world. That coin, ladies and gentlemen, would eventually be sold, not auctioned, not raffled, but directly transferred in a private, hush-hush transaction, for a staggering $765 million. That's not a typo. $765 million. For a quarter. And while that sounds like the kind of headline a tabloid would slap on a checkout stand next to Bigfoot sightings and time travel confessions, every part of this tale has been backed by records, photos, and whispers too consistent to be ignored. The coin exists. The buyer exists. And the story behind it is so deep, so interwoven with U.S. history, national secrets, espionage, and yes, even the lost diaries of Nikola Tesla, that once you hear it all, you may never look at currency the same way again. So let's go back. Not to 1992, but a bit earlier. Specifically, 1989. A time of transition. The Cold War was ending, but the paranoia remained. Somewhere in the back halls of the Department of Energy, a secret program, codenamed Altair, was greenlit under the premise of national resource testing. But what Altair really involved was far stranger. It was a quantum signal experiment, an attempt to imprint unstable quantum signatures onto physical objects in such a way that they would act as information carriers beyond the constraints of standard time-space limitations. To put it simply, they were trying to create objects that could hold information not just in their atomic structure, but outside of what we perceive as time. A message that could be read by the future, or the past, under the right conditions, their test medium. Circulating coins. Chosen for their durability, uniformity, and sheer volume in circulation. The Mint was never told the full truth. Only that the DOE wanted to run durability and signal integrity tests on coin metals. In 1991, the DOE gave instructions to embed a tiny alteration into one die used in the Philadelphia Mint, with extremely specific pressure instructions for striking. This alteration was no more than a nanometer deep in some places, and would not be visible to the naked eye, or even to most microscopes. Only one in every 1.6 million 1992 quarters was made with this anomaly. And the purpose wasn't to find them, but to lose them. Completely, the idea was that if one of these coins, nicknamed echo coins by those in the know, could be tracked decades later, and if the embedded signature still held integrity, then the theory would be validated. That was the plan. What they didn't anticipate was that one of those echo coins wouldn't just hold signal integrity. It would begin broadcasting. Cut to 1996. A young student at MIT named Carrie Lundgren was working on a fringe project involving scanning electromagnetic anomalies in urban environments. Her handmade scanner, which most professors ignored as a glorified radio hobby, began pinging irregular signals in and around Boston's financial district. She spent weeks chasing them, finding only small, seemingly meaningless bursts. Until one day, standing outside a corner diner, her scanner lit up in all 4 frequency bands. She looked around. Nothing unusual. But a man had just received change from the cashier and dropped a few coins while walking out. Carrie rushed over and, pretending to help clean up, slipped several coins into her coat pocket. Back in her lab, she narrowed it down quickly. The signal wasn't ambient. It was coming from a single 1992 quarter. At first, she believed it had to be a hoax or a malfunction. But the readings were consistent. The coin, when exposed to strong magnetic fields, emitted a series of pulses. Not audio. Not visual. But data. Encoded, tight-packet data bursts, so compact that it took her months to isolate a single segment. What she found made no sense, a data stream that, once translated, seemed to describe physical equations not found in any known physics textbook. She brought it to her professor, who immediately dismissed it. The university claimed it was a clever prank. Carrie wasn't convinced. She left MIT quietly, moved to a small town in Oregon, continued her work alone. Meanwhile, the signal from the coin was growing. Not louder, just more refined. The data segments began to repeat. First with a 10-day cycle, then a 3-day cycle, then daily. Until, on January 1, 2000, the signal stopped completely. For 3 years, nothing happened. Then, in 2003, Carrie received an anonymous letter postmarked from Kiev. It contained a simple line of hexadecimal code and a location, a storage unit in Detroit. With nothing to lose, she flew out. The unit had been prepaid for 11 years. Inside was a single lead box. Inside the box, a note: "You've activated it. You're being watched. Do not lose the coin." Carrie went into hiding. She tried to sell the coin once, under a false name, to a private collector in Zurich. Within a week, the collector was found dead. No signs of violence. No toxicology anomalies. Cause of death: cardiac arrest, unexplained. The coin reappeared in Carrie's mailbox a week later. Now frightened beyond belief, she did what she'd sworn never to do. She contacted a man her father had once mentioned in whispers. A Cold War spymaster named Conrad Dreyer. Dreyer was deep underground, living off-grid in Patagonia. She found him. Gave him the coin. Told him everything. He listened, calmly, then placed the coin into a specially designed Faraday container and locked it in a titanium briefcase. "It's not a message," he said. "It's a beacon." Dreyer believed the coin wasn't meant to be read by humans at all. It was a type of anchor, an object meant to stabilize or attract something non-local to a specific point in spacetime. And that the repeated signals were not broadcasts, but pings. A form of GPS, but not for us. For something else. By 2010, word of the coin had reached the ears of people who operated far outside governments. Black vault syndicates. Private intelligence networks. Ancient order types. Everyone wanted it. Everyone claimed to know what it did. One group, known only as the 41, put out a standing offer of $400 million in cryptocurrency for the coin. Dreyer never responded. Until, in late 2018, the signal reactivated. Stronger than before, Carrie was contacted by a buyer representing a consortium of physics entrepreneurs and one well-known artificial intelligence developer. They didn't want to buy the coin. They wanted to buy rights to replicate its internal signature. The sum offered was $765 million. Dreyer agreed, under one condition, that the original never leave his possession. The transaction was made. The funds were transferred. The coin was never seen again. Since then, multiple attempts to reproduce the coin signature have failed. Even with advanced fabrication, nothing quite matches the original's data structure. Some believe the signal cannot be artificially created. That the coin was made under conditions no longer reproducible in the current Earth environment. And what of Carrie? She disappeared in 2020. Her last known communication was a single phrase, emailed to Dreyer: "It's waking up." Today, the original 1992 P-quarter rests in a vault somewhere in the Andes. Some say it's still signaling. Others claim it stopped again. One ex-intelligence official, speaking under anonymity, stated flatly that the coin isn't a message. It's a key. But to what? No one knows. Maybe it's a remnant of a secret government experiment that went too far. Maybe it's a gift from a future yet to be. Or maybe it's proof that someone, somewhere, long ago or long ahead, found a way to write a story into metal, a story that changes depending on who holds it. So the next time you come across a 1992 quarter with a little P under the date, don't just toss it in a jar. Don't throw it in a toll booth. Take a moment. Listen closely. Because some quarters don't just carry value. Thanks for coming back. We'll see you next time with another dive into the strangest corners of the world of currency, where every coin tells a story, but some tell more than they should.